So, I want to talk about the difference between starting over earlier in life versus midlife, because midlife brings a whole different set of rules. And even if you're not starting over in your relationship, you may be starting over in the way you are showing up in the world, in your responsibilities, in the fact that you no longer have kids at home. And all of these things forces you to create a new way of being. And it can be really difficult because we're trying to work off of old patterns and they simply don't work for this new phase of life. So, I want to shed some light on that. I want to give you some strategic steps that you can take and help you understand why midlife is very, very different than starting over at 25. That's barely starting over, right? For most of us, we think, oh, well, they're just young and they have so much to figure out. And the reality is, midlife isn't, 60 years old. Midlife statistically is around age 38. And so, anytime between, I would say, 35 to 60, we are in this transitionary period. And what we do during that time is greatly going to affect the second half of our entire life. Now, if you're new here, I just want to welcome you. And if you're not new, welcome back. But I also want to mention, if you'd like to learn more about the processes that I use, you can check out all the links in the description below. You can set up a completely complimentary consultation call where you and I can chat and I can help you get clarity and make my best recommendation. Because what I do with my clients is a little unique. It's going back on a subconscious level so that you can reframe those old beliefs that are running the show subconsciously as you step into a more not only authentic way of being, but a way of being that is connected to your self-worth. It's a very secure place to be mentally and emotionally, and that's ultimately the goal, but we have to deal with it subconsciously first. So check that all out. I'd love to chat with you. Okay, so starting over in life has a lot of different dynamics to it. And when I think about my own journey, I started over after a 17-year marriage at age 36. I was married very young. I was 19 when I was married. I had no experience dating as an adult. Consequently, my very naive and old way of thinking landed me in a second marriage for a few years that was terrible, very emotionally abusive, and just not healthy at all. But I did learn, I did grow, and I learned how to not only do the deep work on myself, but what I needed to do to show up in the world in a different way. Because the problem is, we tend to revert back to the last time we had to navigate a situation similar to the one that we're in. Now, if you're finding yourself in midlife and you're divorced or starting over, you're going to revert back to the program that you had running before you entered that relationship. For me, that was high school dating. I did not know about adult dating. I didn't know so many things. So that's just one aspect of looking at beginning again in midlife. The reality is that you may have learned a lot along the way. You may have had some observations and some lessons learned, but if you don't realize that your subconscious programming is running over 95% of everything you think, feel, and do, then you might not realize you have a battle on your hands because you might consciously know something to be true or believe it, but subconsciously you're running on a very old program, and the subconscious always wins. It's stronger, much, much stronger. And so it will overwhelm your conscious way of thinking and it will take over for you. And so you really want to address that. And the other thing that I think is important to keep in mind that as we move into midlife, a lot of times we don't know why we're feeling the way we're feeling. I have had hundreds and hundreds of clients, and most of them are in that midlife category. And so it doesn't really matter if that person is married or unmarried. They are worn out. They have anxiety. They feel burnt out. They feel unappreciated. They feel unseen, unknown, not understood. And it really goes back to a pattern of self-betrayal that's been happening for a very long time. It's an unconscious belief of, if I do XYZ, I'm going to get what I need. And so they keep doing it, over functioning. If I do this for my kids and that for my kids, they will love me back. I will stay in an accepted place with them. I'll have the security and love I need. And what they haven't done is tuned into what their own needs actually are. They're still very externally focused, and they don't have a lot of self awareness, even though they have gained wisdom along the way. They don't know how to implement that wisdom. So, a lot of times it comes out in passive aggressive behavior, kind of, saying snide comments or underhanded things without being direct about what they need, what they're feeling, making a request. Because if we make a direct request, we run the risk of being rejected openly. Now, if we do it in an underhanded way, we just sort of feel like, oh, well, whatever, like it is what it is. So if we're direct and we share a need and someone refuses to meet that need, now we're triggering old shame wounds. We're triggering the old rejection we had, the fear of being the outcast in our family or not being safe and secure in some way. And because there's a deeply rooted fear around that, we aren't willing to set ourselves up to feel the old feelings. So what we're really doing is we're avoiding feeling old pain. And in the process, we are creating new pain for ourselves because we aren't stepping into our own authenticity. We aren't being honest. Now, if we were to share those things that we could be rejected about in a way that was healthy and secure, that would mean that we were okay with someone saying no, that we felt competent and confident in our own ability to meet our own needs, regardless of whether or not the other person says yes. We wouldn't take it on personally. We wouldn't assume that it meant something bad about us. We would assume they don't have capacity. They are just being honest about wherever they're at, and we would not take it personally. But the problem is, even if we try to act that way on the outside, we don't usually feel that way on the inside if we haven't healed those wounds. And so it keeps us from being honest with the people in our lives, but mostly it keeps us from being honest with ourselves. So why is this a big deal in midlife? It's a big deal all the time. Why should we be worrying about it in midlife? Well, the fact is that in midlife, you've reached capacity likely. So everyone has what I call the emotional garbage can. That is the place we shove everything down into so we can get through our day. We just keep pressing it down, sweeping it under the rug, whatever you want to call it. And we get through our day by doing that. Now, in midlife, it's like that emotional garbage can is full. And I'm sure you've had a garbage can in your house like this before, where you've pressed it down and pressed it down and pressed it down. And then at some point, that thing's got to go out. So if you are at capacity, there's no more room to press it down. It's starting to spill over the top. Your emotions feel bigger. They feel on the edge of your awareness all the time, on the edge of crying, or you feel flat and shut down because there's just no more capacity. And when that happens, we've got to deal with the fact that the emotional garbage can is full. We've got to empty it out. We've got to deal with the reason we were using this process in the first place. And then we've got to step into our authentic selves, which we haven't been in a very long time. The first half of life is about checking all the boxes, building, creating, family, home, whatever. The second half is about ripping that all down, about looking at what really matters, what doesn't matter, what our needs are, what our desires are, what those desires we've hidden our whole life. And we've felt like a weirdo for having these desires. And now we're looking at them and we're wondering, what should I do? How do I proceed? And the biggest part of this is you might not feel like you have time to sit around and unpack this. Now, most people will go to regular talk therapy a few times, 6 times, 8 times, 20 times, and feel like this doesn't work because I don't feel any better. Now, regular talk therapy does a couple of things really well. It helps you get comfortable enough in a situation to eventually accept the influence of the therapist as they gently let you unpack issues and life and whatever. It helps you identify patterns in your own life that you've been repeating, and it validates your aha moments about your life experience that maybe no one else has validated. And all of that is incredibly valuable. But the problem is, maybe you've been in therapy or regular talk therapy for a really long time and you simply don't feel any better. Or you've read several books and you just don't feel any better. And this is what I hear most often when I have local therapists who send me referrals for their clients because these people have read all the books. They have been in talk therapy year after year after year after year, sometimes for a decade. And they understand their trauma and they understand their patterns, but they do not feel any better. And that's what we all want. We want to feel better. And so the process I use is very rapid because we go directly to the source of what's running the show, the subconscious mind. We reframe there and then we build in this new way of being assertive and communicative and boundaried and really just full of joy in your own life again. So you may not want to waste the time. And what I find is some people feel like I don't have the luxury of wasting time trying to figure myself out at this point. I don't have the luxury to wallow in self-pity and depression and whatever forever. Some people financially don't have the luxury. They need to feel better and function better right now. And that's why this program that I do with my clients is so incredibly impactful. At midlife, you are done messing around. You are done trying on things that don't fit. You're ready to step into your authenticity. You're ready to feel confident, to feel joy again, to be moving in a direction that feels connected and authentic. However, you're hitting up against a subconscious wall because you're trying to do something you have never done before, that you don't have a blueprint for, and it becomes so much more frustrating because you are already at capacity. I hope that makes sense. You don't have any more capacity in you. And you're coming to terms with the things you've swept under the rug for so long because now they're spilling out. There's no place left for them to go. So you're in uncharted territory and you don't even have a map to follow. You're going from centering everyone else to recentering yourself. And in the meantime, jumping from there to there, you are fighting the urge to feel needed, to feel like your life has purpose, to find out where you fit, where you don't fit, what matters and what doesn't matter. And so people who rush that process without actually addressing the issues deeper within themselves end up making that mistake of trying to create what they once had, trying to recreate what they lost, trying to find purpose in things that actually might harm them or are damaging to them. And so it's important that you take this part of your life as an opportunity to have this rebirth, because that's really what it is. You are reborn into the second half of your life. And one of two things happens. You either let all the old fears from your past programming and even your past experiences make you dig your heels in even deeper and just go, this is just the way I am. This is how it is. There's just no other way around it. This is how life is. Or you open up the parts of yourself that have been suppressed. You embrace the parts of yourself that you shamed yourself for. You unpack that old programming and reframe it so you finally feel emotionally free. Those are the only two options, whether you're married or whether you're single. This isn't just about that relationship. This is about the relationship you have with yourself, because that relationship defines every other relationship in your life. How you feel about yourself defines how you feel about others. How honest you are with yourself defines how honest you are with others. How much joy you allow yourself to feel and goodness that you allow yourself to receive directly affects how you show up with others. So this isn't about what should I do in my relationship at midlife. This is about what is my relationship to myself? How did it get that way? And how do I step into being in a more authentic place for myself without it being driven by bitterness and resentment? Because I see that happen all the time. This is when you see people stepping into, all men are this way, all women are this way, everything's broken. If they just fixed XYZ, like there's a narrative that's going on inside your mind that will create bitterness and resentment, and that digging your heels in to the way things are versus looking at yourself with compassion, with curiosity, with openness, and actually starting to practice what real self-care is, which is not pedicures and manicures. It's understanding what your feelings and emotions are telling you so you can meet your needs in real time. It's letting go of attachment to outcome with other people that you can't control them. You have to tune into you and do that deep work for yourself, or else you're going to end up in the other category of digging your heels in and getting bitter and resentful, or even more self-betrayal as you try to get back to a point of feeling needed and loved and wanted. And I think this is really important to keep in mind. Stepping into the unknown is scary. All the time, it's scary. No matter what age you are, it's scary. When you're learning to walk as a baby, it might be a little scary. You're falling down, you're standing up, you're falling down, you're standing up. The people around you know you're going to get there, you're going to figure it out. But you don't necessarily know that until you've done it. And so, even though you've gotten to this point in life where you have had life experiences that help you know whether you can get through things or not. And more often than not, we tend to look at our failures and think, well, I don't think I can do it. I can't figure it out. Instead of looking at the fact that we have literally gotten through everything to this point in life, and that hinders us. So this uncharted territory piece is a really big deal, because if you're trying to control everything and you're trying to control the outcome and you're trying to control all the aspects that make you feel safe, you are never going to step into the unknown, because the unknown, uncharted territory is just that. It is the space where you cannot control all the variables. Even if you believe you can, you can't anyway. We can never control everything. But coming to terms with the acceptance of that is a really big deal. That's a deeply seated issue, deeply in your subconscious mind, where you think, if I can control all the variables, I will be safe. But it doesn't serve you well at this phase of life. I am about to move to France and spend a lot of time there. I will still be home in my in-person office every few months to see clients in person as well, but I'm stepping into the unknown. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if I'm going to love it there. I don't know if it's going to be the best decision I ever made or not. What I do know is that I am open to stepping into the unknown. And I didn't get there overnight. I got there with deep subconscious work on those parts of me that was afraid of change in the past. The parts that were terrified from the times that I had the rug pulled out from under me. And I've come to terms subconsciously in my own subconscious work with the fact that regardless of what happens, I am capable of figuring it out. I am capable of gathering the information that is available to me at any given time to cross the bridge I'm at, not to cross a bridge that I might get to in a year or 2 or 5. I'm trusting that I can take the information I have and cross that bridge because I have come to terms with myself. I have self-acceptance. I have that self-worth. Does it mean I don't have doubts? No, I have doubts. I have fears. But I've learned to trust myself. And so in midlife, we have to work on the connection with ourselves if we ever have any hope of stepping in to anything different, anything new, any new kind of relationship that doesn't have the dynamics that our old relationships had, that we aren't going to make assumptions about this new person that actually apply to an old relationship. If we're going to move somewhere new, or we're going to build new connections right where we are, we have to have the ability to trust ourselves. And we have to have the ability to get out of the funk created by self-betrayal and by that self-criticism. And this is exactly what I do with my clients. So there are 2 ways that I work with my clients right now. I have a secure self blueprint for people who are recovering from divorce and heartbreak and really want to move from insecure attachment into secure attachment. And then I have custom hypnotherapy programs to address whatever it is you're feeling and coming up into within yourself, whatever that roadblock is. And so my newest thing that I'm working on is this midlife audacity process and program, because in midlife, the processes that we go through have layers and they need to be unpacked in a very specific way so that we can step into this part of life and not waste our time anymore. If you're like me, you probably feel like I don't have time to waste. Now, that doesn't mean I need to be urgent and freaked out, but it does mean I want to take seriously this phase of life because I want it to be meaningful. I want to reclaim the things that I feel like I lost in the first half of life, and I want to reclaim my connection to myself. And I don't have time to sit around and talk about it forever. I want to feel better now. I want to feel that change so I can start stepping into that right now. So, if that's where you're at, I would love to have that chat with you. The consultation call is no charge to you. You can set that up in the link in the description below so that we can chat. I can give you my recommendation with no obligation, and you can get a lot more clarity about exactly why you are where you are, what got you here, and what patterns need to be broken and what beliefs need to be reframed so you can step into a new way of being, a new way of functioning, and not just have it superficial on the outside of you, but deeply within you. So if that's you, set up that consultation call. I would love to chat with you. If this content resonates with you, if you appreciate it, I would really appreciate it if you would click like and subscribe. It helps me reach more people with a message that can literally transform their life. And I know from my own experience, I had done all the therapy, EMDR, all the things, and they do have some value, but it was not until I hired a hypnotherapist that does the specific modality that I now do that everything changed, that I connected with my self-worth. I healed those old wounds, and the pressure around it, the fear around those things just evaporated. And I'm partial because I do this, but I love this process for a reason, and it's because it works. So if you want some steps you can take today, what I would recommend is you start getting honest with yourself about what's the narrative you tell yourself? What's the repeat narrative you tell? How do you distract yourself? What happens within you when you stop distracting yourself? What are the fears? What are the worries? What's the deepest ache within you? The thing you long for that you want and you don't have. Start getting curious about yourself. It will give you so much insight into the ways you've been betraying yourself and the path that you want to take forward. So, until next time, I hope you curate a life by your own design.